why would they negotiate with terrorists?
In most cases, history isn't in black and white.
If we don't have gender equality in the world will never be sustainable.
Wow, that sounds awful. Hello guys, we are the JIStorians, and today we're doing a podcast on the suffragettes. Would the four people here would like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Arya, I'm in Skylark, and I'm in Year 7.
Hi, I'm Safi, I'm in Year 8 Fireback.
Hi, I'm Finn, I'm in Year 8 and I'm in Monarch.
Hi, I'm Justin, I'm in Hawk, and I'm in Year 9.
Who were the suffragettes?
The suffragettes are a group of women who wanted the right to vote, but it didn't just happen in the UK, it happened basically all over the world. Some of the most significant people in Canada were Louise McKinney and Emily Murphy. In Australia, it was Mary Lee and Catherine Helen Spence. In the UK, there was a group of women called the WSPU, which stands for Women's Social and Political Union, which motto is "Deeds Not Words." And as Emily Pankhurst beautifully puts it, "I'd rather be a rebel than a slave." The suffragettes are different from the suffragists, because the suffragists were a group of women who protest peacefully by sending letters and such. But the suffragists, they saw the suffragettes or the suffragists in it, but it made no change. So they decided to get out there and take centre stage by doing stuff that men didn't really think they were capable to do, like bombing places just to spread their awareness, saying if you don't give us the right to vote, why should we pay tax? Because if we pay tax, then why don't we get to choose how the government spends it?
Are there any interesting tales of their actions, and was that surprising for women of that time?
Yes, it was surprising of women of that time, because it's just they thought the normal women were supposed to be quiet at home. They weren't supposed to have a job, have a say, have an opinion, basically. But suffragettes like Emily Davidson said, well, this is enough, let's just do it. So Emily Davidson became a martyr on the 4th of June 1913. A martyr is a person who dies for their cause. Emily was arrested 9 times, went on hunger strike 7 times, and force-fed on 49 occasions. She also hid overnight at the Palace of Westminster. But she was killed after being hit by the King's horse at the Epsom Derby in 1913. But male-run newspapers painted her as crazy and reported the health of the horse or the results of the race before her, who was in a fatal coma. And they basically just made the Mickey of her. The WSPU chose white, purple and green for their clothing, white for purity, purple for dignity and green for hope. They burnt paintings in art galleries, and they had their own newspapers, which were called Votes for Women in 1912, 14, 17 and 18, Women's Dead Note in 1914 to 1924, Women's Gazette and Weekly News in 1888 to 1889, and Women's Signal in 1894 to 1899.
Another fun tale was on the 18th of July, 1912, Mary Lay hurled an hatchet towards H.H. Asquith, who was the Prime Minister of the UK at the time, in Dublin, but she missed, and the hatchet instead cut the Irish MP John Redmond on the ear.
And that afternoon, they tried to burn down the theatre that Asquith was in, the Theatre Royal in Dublin, and left a bomb, and it bombed the audience, which included the Prime Minister, but they all had left, so they basically just bombed and set fire to an empty building.
I've heard of the term Suffragitsu. What's that?
It's the suffragettes had a jiu-jitsu instructor, and it was later called Suffragitsu as a play on the name.
Interesting. Were there any ordeals at the hands of the government, as technically suffragettes were breaking the law?
So the government would arrest them, and they would go on hunger strike. They would go on hunger strike in prison, and they would force feed them through tubes up their noses. And when that didn't work and they would continue going on hunger strike, there was the Cat and Mouse Act of 1913, where they would release the prisoners and then bring them back in once they ate enough and they were strong again. And then they just repeat and repeat. And Miss Kitty Marion had written to the Manchester Guardian that she would have put an end to it by hanging herself regarding force feeding. She was force fed 232 times.
Wow, that sounds awful. At the time, was the movement successful or did it fall flat on its face?
Well, it's kind of debatable, as some people will say that World War One gave women the vote, as in 1918 in the UK, women over 30 were given the right to vote. However, the voting age for men was 21. And there's also the point of why would they negotiate with terrorists? Because that would just make people use violence to get what they want. Others say that the suffragettes gave women the vote, as in the UK, first women over 30 were given the vote in 1918, and most of the working women were under 30, and the women only got the same voting age as men in 1928, 10 years after World War One ended. And some argue that the suffragettes also didn't go far enough, as women of colour in the US only got the right to vote 40 years later.
Wow. Were the suffragettes' actions considered as terrorism or as acts of rebellion and protest?
It depends on how you look at it, to be honest. In most cases, history isn't in black and white. It's often in shades of grey, so it depends on how you look at it. Even though they did commit acts of terrorism, they did eventually grant women the vote, and it's helped generations in the future with all the gender equality stuff going on now.
Care to elaborate more?
The UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5 is gender equality. So it's basically if we don't have gender equality in the world will never be sustainable.
The suffragettes have a long-lasting legacy.
Yes, they did, as many of their tactics are still used in modern-day protests, as the Extinction Rebellion does stuff that the suffragettes did first, which includes gluing themselves to trains and militant action, but there hasn't been any bombing yet.
As well as that, French pension protesters burnt down the Bordeaux town hall.
Well, does anyone have any final thoughts or opinions on the suffragettes?
The suffragettes were truly inspirational women, as they did what they had to get the equal rights, and even though the world still isn't quite equal yet, if they hadn't done that, me and Aria might not be able to vote now. Well, we're not able to vote yet, but we will in the future when we're grown up.
In a different country.
Yeah.
I believe that the suffragettes should be in more history curriculums because they're not in yet all of them.
I think that their actions led to more development in protesting, and I specifically believe that their actions have led to the more extreme forms of protesting that we see today.
It's a bit of a complex issue because, while their cause was, noble because it is equal rights, their tactics weren't exactly, what's the term?
Against the law?
I guess.
Exactly.
Illegal.
Complying with the laws.
Weren't exactly ideal.
Well, I just want to be clear here. We are not encouraging this behaviour. We're not encouraging people go out and go commit acts of terrorism and
Please
bombing
don't.
to get what they want.
Please don't bomb.
Please don't.
Yeah.
If you do that, we'll get in trouble. So please don't do
But
that.
we will not be held liable for any
It's not
terrorist
our
attacks.
fault. It's not
Yeah.
our fault.
So guys, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Thanks for watching.